At 18 years old, Claire Whitmore had exactly $83 left. She counted the bills twice before folding them back into her wallet. That money had to last until payday, if she found another job. 3 months earlier, her father had died unexpectedly. He left nothing except unpaid bills. Her stepmother wasted no time. "The house belongs to me now." Claire stared across the living room she'd grown up in. "You promised, Dad, you let me finish school." Her stepmother folded her arms. Plans change. An hour later, Claire stood on the sidewalk with a duffel bag, an old pickup truck, and nowhere to go. She spent the following weeks sleeping inside the truck behind a church parking lot. She washed up at a public recreation center before every shift. Worked mornings stocking shelves, evenings washing dishes. One Saturday, while delivering old furniture for extra cash, she noticed a sign outside a historic estate. Absolute auction. Everything had to go. She wandered inside after the sale had nearly ended. Most buyers ignored the inexpensive lots. They fought over jewelry, artwork, antique furniture, silver collections. Claire wandered into a dusty upstairs bedroom. Only one item remained: an enormous Victorian mirror nearly 6 feet tall. Its walnut frame was beautifully hand-carved, but the glass carried a long crack from top to bottom. An auction worker laughed. "Nobody wants that thing." "Why?" "Too expensive to restore. It's basically firewood." The auctioneer sighed. "Last item. Opening bid, $50. Silence. No one raised a paddle. Claire hesitated. She loved restoring old furniture. The carved frame alone deserved saving. She slowly lifted her bidder's card. "I'll bid." Several buyers turned and smiled. "The homeless girl wants the broken mirror." Someone chuckled. "Good luck fitting that in your truck." The hammer fell. Sold. $50. Almost everything she had. With help from an employee, Claire carefully loaded the massive mirror into her pickup. That evening she parked beside an abandoned campground where she often slept. Using a flashlight, she began cleaning decades of dust from the frame. The craftsmanship amazed her. Every carved flower, every vine, every detail had been made by hand. Near the bottom, she noticed a tiny brass plaque hidden beneath dirt. Only 4 words appeared. "Truth reflects patient eyes." She smiled. "That's beautiful." The next morning, she rented an old storage workshop by the hour so she could safely repair the frame. While examining the back, she noticed something unusual. The wooden backing didn't match the rest of the mirror. The nails looked newer. Someone had replaced them decades later. Curious, she removed several small brass nails. The backing loosened slightly. Before she could lift it, a voice interrupted. "Interesting mirror." She turned. An elderly furniture restorer stood in the doorway. "My name's Walter." He studied the carving. "I haven't seen workmanship like that in years." "You know it." He nodded slowly. "Everyone thought this mirror disappeared." Claire frowned. "Disappeared?" "It belonged to the Ashcroft family." "The industrial family?" "The same." Walter stepped closer. "They refused every offer to sell it." "Why?" "They always claimed the mirror protected something far more valuable than itself." He smiled. "I always assumed it was just an old family legend." Before leaving, he quietly added, "If anyone offers to buy it, don't." The warning stayed with Claire. 3 days later, she understood why. A black luxury sedan stopped outside the workshop. A sharply dressed woman stepped inside. "My name is Victoria Graves." She smiled professionally. "My company would like to purchase your mirror." Claire blinked. "This cracked thing. We'll offer $1 million. Claire nearly dropped her screwdriver. "For this mirror?" "Cash." "No." Victoria remained perfectly calm. "If you reconsider." She placed a business card on the workbench. "Call me." Then she left. 2 days later, another representative arrived. Different company, different business card. This offer reached $4 million. Again, Claire refused. Now she knew. The mirror wasn't valuable because it was antique. Something hidden inside mattered. That evening, she removed the remaining brass nails. The rear panel slowly lifted away. Inside, no treasure, no jewels, no cash. Instead, she discovered a thin steel plate covering another compartment. At its center rested a tiny keyhole. Taped beside it was an antique brass key wrapped in faded cloth. She inserted it. A soft metallic click echoed. The steel panel slowly swung open. Behind it rested a leather tube. Inside the tube lay a rolled survey map, a brass compass, and a handwritten note. Only 5 words appeared. "Follow the reflection below." "Reflection?" She studied the survey map. A hand-drawn path led toward an abandoned stone greenhouse located on the Ashcroft family's long-forgotten country estate. The estate had been abandoned for nearly 40 years. The following morning, Claire drove there. The mansion itself stood empty, windows boarded, gardens swallowed by vines. But the old greenhouse still stood. Its cracked glass roof reflected the morning sunlight. She unfolded the map. The compass needle didn't point north. Instead, it pointed toward the exact center of the greenhouse floor. There she found an enormous circular stone hidden beneath decades of moss. Using an iron bar lying nearby, she slowly lifted it. Cold air rushed upward. A spiral staircase descended into darkness, far deeper than any greenhouse foundation should reach. Her heartbeat quickened. Every instinct warned her to leave. Instead, she climbed down. The staircase opened into an enormous underground chamber. Claire stopped breathing. Concrete walls, steel support beams, industrial generators, climate-controlled storage rooms, shelves filled with leather-bound journals, historic property deeds, engineering surveys, mining reports. This wasn't a secret vault. It looked like a hidden command center. At the center stood a handcrafted oak table. One envelope rested there. Across the front, written in elegant handwriting, were 3 words. For Claire only. Her hands trembled. How could someone know her name? She carefully opened the envelope. The first sentence made her blood run cold. If you've reached this room, then the people trying to buy the Ashcroft mirror have probably found you already. Trying to buy it? Why? Before she could read another line, a low engine echoed faintly overhead. Then another. Then another. She hurried toward an old security monitor mounted on the wall. The screen flickered to life. Outside the abandoned greenhouse, 3 black SUVs had just entered the estate. 6 strangers stepped out carrying surveying equipment and locked aluminum document cases. And they were already walking toward the greenhouse. Claire's heart pounded. 3 black SUVs stood outside the abandoned greenhouse. 6 strangers climbed out. None carried gardening tools. None looked interested in restoring the estate. Each carried surveying equipment, radios, and locked aluminum document cases. They weren't searching for the mirror. They were searching for what the mirror had protected. Claire turned back to the letter. Her hands trembled as she continued reading. If they've arrived, then they finally discovered what my family spent generations protecting. She swallowed. The next sentence stopped her cold. This underground archive isn't your inheritance. Claire frowned. If the archive wasn't the inheritance, then what was? She continued reading. Nearly 60 years earlier, Arthur Ashcroft, one of the country's leading civil engineers, had overseen construction projects across the region. While surveying the Ashcroft estate, he discovered something remarkable. Not buried treasure, not gold, not gemstones. An enormous underground limestone aquifer containing one of the purest natural spring systems in the state. As nearby cities expanded, investment groups quietly realized the spring could become one of the region's most valuable long-term water sources. Through shell corporations, they began purchasing neighboring properties. They weren't interested in the old mansion. They wanted permanent control of the water beneath it. Arthur refused every offer. Instead, he secretly transferred ownership of the critical mineral and water rights into the Ashcroft Heritage Trust. Every engineering survey, every land deed, every water right agreement, every document exposing decades of fraudulent land acquisitions. Everything remained hidden beneath the greenhouse. The cracked mirror had never been the treasure. It had simply protected the map, waiting for one person, waiting for Claire. A modern valuation report slipped from the folder. Estimated value of the Ashcroft Heritage Trust, $312 million. Claire stared silently. $312 million. Not because of the mirror, because the trust controlled the protected spring and surrounding water rights. Above her came the sound of heavy footsteps. The strangers had entered the greenhouse. Arthur's letter continued. The trust transfers only to the heir who values craftsmanship over wealth. Claire smiled through tears. Without realizing it, she had already fulfilled the condition. She bought the mirror because she admired its workmanship. She repaired it before searching for profit. The next pages contained original deeds, engineering reports, historic maps, environmental agreements. Everything had been preserved with extraordinary care. Then she noticed another envelope. Smaller, addressed simply, "My dear Claire." She carefully opened it. If you're reading this, then life probably became much harder than you deserved. Her eyes filled with tears. I knew one day the family fortune would disappear. Money often attracts greed. Character does not. The letter continued. I never wanted my true heir chosen by birth. I wanted my heir chosen by actions. When I learned about the young woman who spent her last dollars rescuing a broken mirror everyone else ignored, I knew the waiting was over. Claire stopped breathing. Arthur had never met her. Yet somehow he had planned for someone exactly like her. The final paragraph read, "You saw beauty where everyone else saw damage. That is why this belongs to you." A loud voice echoed through the chamber. "The archive's been opened. Find the documents." Arthur's final instruction appeared at the bottom of the page. Leave through the conservatory tunnel. A blueprint showed a concealed passage behind the climate control room. Claire quickly packed every deed, survey, journal, and trust agreement into waterproof document cases. She hurried toward the rear of the archive. Behind several air filtration units stood a heavy bronze wheel. She turned it. A section of the concrete wall slowly slid aside. A narrow tunnel stretched into darkness. Behind her, another voice shouted, "She's getting away." Without hesitation, Claire entered the passage. The tunnel followed the original irrigation system beneath the estate. Nearly 25 minutes later, daylight appeared ahead. She emerged inside a forgotten stone carriage house hidden beyond the estate orchard. Inside waited a wooden desk, a satellite phone, fresh batteries, and one final envelope. Arthur had planned every detail decades earlier. Inside rested attorney Eleanor Brooks' business card. Below it, one handwritten sentence read, "Call immediately." Claire picked up the satellite phone. Eleanor answered before the second ring. "Claire Whitmore, you expected me? We've been preparing for your call for almost 25 years. Eleanor explained everything. Arthur had legally established the Ashcroft Heritage Trust decades earlier. The moment Claire recovered the original archive, ownership transferred automatically. At that exact moment, encrypted legal notices were delivered to environmental agencies, state authorities, land registries, and financial crime investigators. The people searching for the mirror weren't antique collectors. They represented shell corporations that had spent decades trying to illegally obtain the Ashcroft water rights. Arthur's archive documented everything: forged deeds, corporate bribery, illegal property acquisitions, money laundering, hidden ownership agreements, every fraudulent transaction. Within days, search warrants were executed. Corporate headquarters were raided. Executives were arrested. Fraudulent property transfers were canceled. The Ashcroft Heritage Trust retained permanent ownership of the protected watershed. Months later, independent hydrologists confirmed Arthur's original engineering studies. The underground spring could responsibly supply surrounding communities with clean drinking water for generations while preserving the ecosystem. Reporters expected Claire to sell everything immediately. Instead, she surprised everyone. She permanently protected the estate. The greenhouse became a botanical research center. The mansion was restored as a museum celebrating craftsmanship, engineering, and conservation. Revenue from carefully managed water agreements funded scholarships for trade schools, furniture restoration apprenticeships, and housing programs for young adults experiencing homelessness. Exactly the kind of opportunity Claire had once desperately needed. 1 year later, the estate had come back to life. The greenhouse overflowed with flowers. The mansion welcomed visitors once more. The cracked mirror hung proudly in the entrance hall, not hidden away, but displayed exactly as it was, crack and all. Visitors often asked why it had never been restored. Claire always smiled, because the crack wasn't its weakness. It was the reason everyone else overlooked it. Most people believed she became wealthy because she bought a broken mirror hiding a secret worth millions. That wasn't the real story. The mirror wasn't the treasure. The underground archive wasn't the treasure. Even the Heritage Trust wasn't the greatest inheritance. Arthur Ashcroft left Claire something far more valuable: the wisdom to recognize worth where others saw only flaws. The courage to protect the future instead of chasing quick wealth.